You know what really gets under my skin? When people work their entire lives, pay into a system for 40, 50 years, and then get blindsided by changes they never saw coming. And right now, there's something happening with Social Security that every American over 60 needs to understand, because the government just approved something significant, and if you don't know whether you qualify, you could be leaving serious money on the table. We're talking about a $500 monthly increase that's rolling out in 2026. Now, before you get too excited or too skeptical, let me be crystal clear. This isn't going to everyone. The Social Security Administration has specific criteria, and understanding these rules could mean the difference between struggling to make ends meet and having some breathing room in your budget. This isn't some pie-in-the-sky promise. This is real policy affecting real people. And the truth is, most folks have no idea if they're even eligible. I've spent decades helping people navigate their finances, and I can tell you this. When it comes to government benefits, ignorance isn't bliss. It's expensive. So let's cut through the noise and get down to exactly who qualifies, how this increase actually works, and what you need to do right now to make sure you're not missing out on what's rightfully yours. Look, I'm going to level with you right from the start because that's what you deserve. Every single day, I talk to people who are terrified about their retirement. They're scared they won't have enough. They're worried about medical bills. They're concerned about keeping a roof over their heads and food on the table. And you know what makes it worse? The fact that the information about Social Security is scattered everywhere. Half of it's wrong, and the other half is so confusing that people just give up trying to understand it. That ends right now because I'm going to walk you through this $500 monthly increase like we're sitting across the kitchen table from each other. And by the time we're done, you're going to know exactly where you stand. Now, first things first. This increase isn't some brand new benefit that Congress just invented out of thin air. What we're really talking about here is a combination of the annual cost of living adjustment, what they call COLA, and some specific provision changes that are hitting simultaneously in 2026. The Social Security Administration adjusts benefits every year based on inflation, and they use something called the Consumer Price Index for urban wage earners and clerical workers. I know it's a mouthful, and honestly the name doesn't matter as much as what it does. What matters is that when the cost of everything goes up, your groceries, your utilities, your health care, Social Security is supposed to go up too, so you're not losing purchasing power. Here's where it gets interesting, and this is the part that most news headlines completely miss. The 2026 adjustment isn't just a standard COLA increase. There are legislative changes that were passed in late 2025 that affect specific groups of beneficiaries, and these changes are stacking on top of the regular adjustment. So when you hear about this $500 increase, you need to understand that it's not $500 for everyone across the board. Some people might see that full amount. Others might see less. And some folks, unfortunately, might not see much change at all. That's why understanding the details is absolutely critical, because assuming you're going to get something without checking could leave you planning a budget that doesn't match reality. Let me break down who's actually in line for the maximum increase here, because this is where the rubber meets the road. The biggest increases are going to beneficiaries who fall into what Social Security calls the combined income threshold for taxation purposes. Now, I need you to stay with me here because this gets a little technical, but it's not complicated once you understand it. Your combined income for Social Security purposes is your adjusted gross income, plus any non-taxable interest, plus half of your Social Security benefits. If you're single and that number is above $34,000, or if you're married filing jointly and it's above $44,000, up to 85% of your Social Security benefits can be taxed. The 2026 changes include adjustments to how these thresholds work, and for many people, that means more of their benefit stays in their pocket instead of going to Uncle Sam. But here's the thing that really matters. The people who are going to see the most dramatic increase are those who have been receiving reduced benefits due to the windfall elimination provision or the government pension offset. If those terms sound like Greek to you, don't worry. Most people have never heard of them until they get hit with them. The windfall elimination provision affects people who worked in jobs where they didn't pay Social Security taxes, like certain government positions or jobs covered by a pension system, but who also worked other jobs where they did pay into Social Security. The government pension offset, reduces Social Security benefits for spouses, widows, and widowers who also receive a government pension. These two provisions have been reducing benefits for millions of Americans for decades, and they've been incredibly controversial because they feel like a punishment for people who worked hard in public service. The 2026 legislative changes include significant modifications to both of these provisions. We're talking about partial repeals and adjustment formulas that are more favorable to beneficiaries. For someone who's been getting hit hard by the windfall elimination provision, this could mean an additional $300 to $500 per month depending on their work history and benefit calculation. For those affected by the government pension offset, particularly surviving spouses who've seen their benefits slashed, this could be life-changing money. I'm talking about the difference between choosing between medications and groceries versus actually being able to afford both. Now, let's talk about the standard COLA increase that everyone who receives Social Security will see in 2026. Based on the inflation data from the third quarter of 2025, the Social Security Administration announced a COLA increase of 3.2%. For someone receiving the average Social Security retirement benefit of around $1,900 per month, that 3.2% translates to roughly $60 a month, or about $720 over the course of the year. That's helpful? Sure. But it's not the $500 monthly increase we're talking about in the title. That's because the $500 figure applies to specific situations where the COLA increase combines with the legislative changes I just mentioned. Let me paint you a real-world picture here because numbers on a page don't mean much until you see how they actually affect somebody's life. Imagine you're a retired teacher named Margaret. You taught in a public school system for 30 years, paying into a state pension system instead of Social Security. But before you became a teacher, you worked in the private sector for 15 years and paid into Social Security during that time. When you retired, you expected to get both your teacher's pension and your Social Security benefit based on those 15 years of contributions. But then the windfall elimination provision kicked in and reduced your Social Security benefit by nearly half. Instead of getting the $800 a month you expected, you're only getting $450. That's a $350 monthly hit that's been affecting your budget for years. With the 2026 changes, Margaret's reduction gets recalculated using a more favorable formula, and suddenly she's getting back $250 of that lost benefit. Add in the standard COLA increase of $60, and Margaret is looking at over $300 more per month. For someone in a similar situation with a higher original benefit calculation, that could absolutely reach $500. Here's another scenario. You're a widow named Robert, whose wife worked for the state government for her entire career. She had a generous pension, but when she passed away, you applied for survivor benefits through Social Security based on your own work record. You expected to receive her Social Security survivor benefits to help supplement your income, but the government pension offset reduced those benefits by 2/3 of her pension amount. If her pension was $3,000 a month, your survivor benefit got reduced by $2,000, which likely eliminated it entirely. The 2026 changes modify this formula so that the offset is less severe. For Robert, this could mean finally receiving a survivor benefit that was previously wiped out completely, which could absolutely amount to $500 or more per month, especially when combined with his own COLA increase. What I want you to understand is that this isn't about the government suddenly becoming generous. This is about correcting provisions that have been fundamentally unfair to people who dedicated their careers to public service. Teachers, firefighters, police officers, government workers, these are people who served their communities and then got penalized in retirement for doing so. The fact that it's taken this long to address these issues is frustrating, but the important thing now is making sure that if you're affected, you know about it, and you're taking the steps necessary to claim what's yours. Now, I need to talk about something that's going to affect everyone regardless of these specific provisions, and that's the reality of Social Security's long-term sustainability. You've probably heard the doom and gloom predictions about Social Security running out of money. Let me give you the straight truth on this because the fear-mongering doesn't help anybody. Social Security isn't going broke in the sense that it's going to disappear. The trust funds that Social Security draws from are projected to be depleted by around 2034 or 2035, depending on which report you're reading. But here's what that actually means. Even if Congress does absolutely nothing, which is unlikely, Social Security would still be able to pay about 79 to 80% of scheduled benefits from ongoing payroll tax revenue. That's not good, and it would mean benefit cuts, but it's not the apocalypse scenario some people paint. The reason I'm bringing this up is because it affects how you should be thinking about this $500 increase and your overall retirement strategy. If you're counting on Social Security to be your only source of income in retirement, you're already in a precarious position, and any potential benefit cuts down the road would hurt even more. This increase, as helpful as it is, should not be an excuse to stop saving or to stop being intentional about your retirement planning. Social Security was designed to be one leg of a three-legged stool, along with pensions and personal savings. For most people today, pensions are gone, which means your personal savings and investments are even more critical. Let me tell you what I tell everyone who calls into my show worried about their retirement. You cannot outsource your financial security to the government. I don't care how good your Social Security benefit is. I don't care if you're getting an extra $500 a month. If you're not taking personal responsibility for building wealth and creating multiple streams of income for retirement, you're setting yourself up for stress and struggle. This increase should be seen as a bonus, as a helpful supplement, but not as the foundation of your retirement plan. The foundation needs to be your own savings, your own investments, and your own intentional choices about how you live and spend. Here's what you need to do right now if you think you might qualify for this increased benefit. First, you need to get a copy of your Social Security statement. You can do this online at the Social Security Administration's website by creating a My Social Security account. This statement will show you your earnings history, your projected benefits, and any alerts about issues that might affect your payments. Second, if you've worked in a job where you didn't pay Social Security taxes, or if you're receiving a government pension, you need to specifically look into whether the windfall elimination provision or government pension offset has been affecting your benefits. Third, if you're already receiving benefits and you think these changes apply to you, you may need to contact Social Security directly to ensure your benefits are recalculated correctly. The Social Security Administration is supposed to make these adjustments automatically, but we all know that government systems aren't perfect, and sometimes things fall through the cracks. I also want to address something that's been causing confusion out there, and that's the difference between supplemental security income and Social Security retirement benefits. Supplemental Security Income, or SSI, is a needs-based program for people with limited income and resources who are elderly, blind, or disabled. Social Security retirement benefits are based on your earnings history and what you paid into the system. The COLA increases apply to both programs, but the legislative changes regarding the windfall elimination provision and government pension offset only affect Social Security retirement, disability, and survivor benefits, not SSI. If you're receiving SSI, you'll get the COLA increase, which for 2026 brings the maximum federal SSI payment to around $967 for an individual, but you won't see the additional increases related to those specific provision changes unless you're also receiving Social Security benefits. The bottom line here, and I really want you to hear this, is that knowledge is power when it comes to your benefits. The $500 monthly increase is real for certain groups of people, and if you're one of them, it could make a meaningful difference in your quality of life. But you have to be proactive. You have to understand your own situation. You have to check your statements, ask questions, and make sure you're getting everything you're entitled to. The government isn't going to come knocking on your door to hand you extra money. You have to know your rights and advocate for yourself. And beyond that, you need to be building a financial life that doesn't depend entirely on government benefits, because the only person you can truly count on to secure your future is you.